beautiful. I love that song. I love the song we sang before the meditation too. One of my first times at Unity, way back in the other building, you were singing that and it blew me away. It did. I am comfortable with change. Can you join me in that affirmation? Let's say it together. I am comfortable with change. Good. One of the things I changed is the title of the message this morning. Not the mother of unity, the mother and father of unity. I'd like to talk about both of them. In Unity, we have a really wonderful way of being inclusive in many terms of how we talk about the divine, other names for God. And one of the beautiful ones is Mother, Father, God. So today we're going to talk about Mother and Father of Unity. I like Mother, Father, God because it tells us that God is neither masculine or feminine. God is both, God is neither. God is not a he, God is not a she. God is it, and God is principle, right? God is this great mystery that we can spend our lives trying to understand. And maybe when we come to some understanding about what God is for us, we try to write that down and put it in words. And then we discover that our understanding maybe changed. And that's okay. That's our spiritual path. That's, I think, is the way it is meant to be. Unity has the fortunate history of being founded by both a man and a woman, a husband and a wife team, Myrtle and Charles Fillmore. So this morning I want to tell the story of their beginnings, how they met, and how this movement that we're part of got started. So, their story, well, our story this morning, begins in the mid-1800s, before Minnesota was a state. Charles was born in northern Minnesota on an Indian reservation near St. Cloud in August 1854. His parents lived in a little log cabin that his dad built alongside the Sauk River, and that's where he grew up. He had kind of a wild childhood. He compared himself to Huck Finn. So imagine this young boy wandering through the woods, and there's fur trappers around, and he went to the Indian villages and played with the children there. He hunted, he fished, he harvested wild rice. He did whatever he could to help his family survive, especially after age 7 when his father moved away and built another cabin 10 miles away. So he spent time in either cabin, and kind of was a, joint custody situation. A big event happened in his life when he was 10. He was ice skating, and he had an accident. He dislocated and broke his hip, which was a big deal back in those days. He saw many, many doctors to try to help with this condition, but he really suffered. There was a good 2 years there where he was in a lot of pain, infections coming and going, and the medical profession at that time, they were trying leeches and just crazy things. So because of that situation, he had trouble with his leg probably most of his life. It was 2 inches shorter than the other one. He walked with crutches and braces and was in pain with that. But he healed enough to resume life and get out of bed and become the wonderful man that he became. He went into St. Cloud in his teenage years and lived there, worked there. And while he was there, he met a young woman who was actually the wife of an army officer in town who had been to college and studied literature. So she took Charles on and tutored him, taught him, the literature, Shakespeare, Tennyson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Hits the Rain, Spiritual Waters, We're Being Blessed. So he learned how to articulate there, he learned how to read and write, and read some of the great literature of that time. And it developed his intellect. At age 19, he decided it was time to see the world, so he moved, went through Colorado, and ended up down in Texas, Denison, Texas, where he was a clerk in a freight office. And he joined a group of people who met to talk about books, philosophy, science. They met to enrich their lives and share ideas. So let's leave Charles there in Denison, Texas, talking about ideas. And we'll pick up with Myrtle. Myrtle is actually Mary Caroline Page. She was born in Pagetown, Ohio, also in August 1845. So if you do the math, she's 9 years older than Charles. And Pagetown, Page, that's her last name. Her father founded this town. It was pretty prominent in the area. Her parents were strict Methodists, and Methodists were strict back in those days. Yes. She went to that church, but she never joined. In fact, she said that she couldn't join a church that believed in hell. Yeah. As a child, she was a little different, loved to be out in nature. Well, maybe all children love that and feel our oneness with Spirit when we're out on a walk or sitting beside some water. And she was like that. But she also was diagnosed with tuberculosis as a little girl. So that was a big and heavy thing, very serious back in that time. She loved school. She was great at math and science and also reading literature. So she too read Shakespeare, and she was one of the younger ones in a family of 9 kids. So when she went through all the books that she could read in her school, she started helping herself to her brother's books and would take, they weren't appropriate, her father thought, so she would take them secretly out to the river in a nice little spot and read by the river. One of the things she read was the works of Josephus, that first century historian. So, this was heavy reading for a young woman. She graduated from her school, did a correspondence school so she could become a teacher. And she did that for many years. She was a school teacher. But then the tuberculosis kind of caught up with her. She got pretty sick, and the doctors told her, you probably need a warmer, drier climate. So they recommended that she go to Denison, Texas. There was kind of a retreat place there for people with tuberculosis. She intended to stay for about a year and see if she could recuperate. When I was thinking about this talk, I kept calling her Mert. When I was one of the co-sponsors of YOU way back, John's laughing, Holly's laughing. When we'd go to the YOU rallies, we'd often do skits, and the kids would call him Chuck and Mert. So if I say that, I mean Charles and Myrtle. So she moved to Denison, Texas, and she joined the Monday night Denison Literary Club. And one evening, she recited one of her poems there, and Charles heard it. He heard this red-haired school teacher reciting a poem, and he heard a voice inside saying, Charles, this is your wife. So that's the story of how our co-founders found each other in a book club. And isn't that cool? Because they loved books. They shared them, they shared ideas, and we still do the same thing. We have book clubs here, book studies. I talk about books up front. We watch movies and discuss them afterwards. It's in our lineage, this unity movement.
We have a bookstore, too.
And we have an amazing bookstore. I was out there this morning before I came in, just looking at all the titles. I wanted to add up and see how many titles were by Charles Fillmore, but there's so many, way too many. Let's see, where was I? Okay, sometimes they went on picnics together while they were dating, and a few times they'd go out into the countryside and look for fossils. So those are kind of fun dates, I think. They ended up getting married in 1881. Lived for a time in Colorado, and then Charles, in a dream, was told to move to Kansas City, that's where their life work would be. So they did. She was busy being a mom to their 2 little boys and also pregnant with their 3rd son. But she was getting sick back in Kansas City. I read in one source that she had fevers, they thought maybe even malaria at the time, in addition to tuberculosis. So it was not looking good for Mert. She was, it looked like she was going to pass. So they just were urgent about getting information to help with her healing. And she had done everything the doctors had told her, and she wasn't getting better. They read, they went to lectures, and one of the lectures they went to was given by a man named E.B. Weeks. Now, that name isn't terribly familiar to us, but he was a student of Emma Curtis Thompson. Hopkins, sorry. I think I know an Emma Thompson. Hermione, right? Well, anyway, Emma Curtis Thompson was a great metaphysician of the time, and she taught lots of the metaphysical leaders, including our co-founders. They took classes and were ordained by her later on. And she also is an amazing healer. So this man was a student of hers. And Myrtle heard in that lecture, I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. You've heard that one before, haven't you? I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. That was just a major aha for her. She went home and began changing her life because of that statement. It enabled her to discard her old belief system. And she had plenty of old beliefs. She believed that she inherited this disease on her father's side. She'd been told since she was a little girl that she was sickly. She believed that. She believed she would die young. So she had to turn that around. And she went into a small room and closed the door. Where have we heard that before? She would read the Gospels. One of her favorite passages from Mark, therefore I will tell you whatever you ask in prayer, that you have received it, and you will. She began a practice of speaking to her body. She thought her body parts had intelligence. And so she began to speak to each part of her body and tell it, you're not diseased. You are not defective in any way at all. You are alive with spirit, with the energy and love and healing flow of spirit. And she healed. She became well. And it's a major deal, and she wrote about it, and she told people about it, and people would come to her and ask her, how'd you do this? I want to do this in my life. She answered letters about her, how she managed to help heal herself. And that's kind of how Silent Unity began, those letters and people coming to Myrtle about her healing. Her healing caught Charles' attention too, wasn't it? So he began his own healing journey, spent many hours over many decades about his knee or his leg situation. He believed that he could heal his withered leg. And he did. It became stronger and longer. He was able to get rid of braces and crutches and even a cane. His limp subsided. But it wasn't an instantaneous healing. It took a while, but it happened. So both of our co-founders experienced healing. By sitting in the silence, meditating in prayer, and using affirmations. They were able to change their circumstances by changing their mind and changing their beliefs. There's so much to say about these two wonderful, amazing people, how they work together to create unity, how they work with other people to create unity, the publications that came out of the unity movement, the actual unity village, silent unity, there's so much. But I'm not going to do any more history today, maybe another day. Instead, I want to focus on a couple of their specific teachings. So Charles taught us that we can read and listen to other ideas, we can explore science and religion, and all the ideas of the day, but then take them into the silence. When we go into the silence, our minds join with, are awakened to divine mind. And when we're there, we can discern whether these excuse me, things that we take into the truth are the truth for us. get that clarity. Because only you can know the truth for yourself. And Charles called this going to headquarters. I want to read you some things from their words so that you can hear how they spoke about this. This is an excerpt from Charles. Beware, oh boy, 1 minute, I have a frog.
Minnie Mouse will help you.
Deanna gave me this mug a couple weeks ago, and I like it to be up here. Okay, here's Charles. Beware of the circumscribed idea of God. What he's saying is, someone tells you this is what God is, beware of that. You need to figure that out yourself. Always provide for an increase in your concept. Okay, so anything you're thinking, multiply that. It's bigger than that. Don't write down any laws governing your conduct or your religious ideas. Now, I don't think he means don't write down things. He wrote down plenty, and his wife did, and we do spiritual journaling. That's not what he means. He means don't set something in concrete and say, this is what I believe, this is what I'm going to do, and that's it, it's going to stay that way, right? That's not what he wanted. He says be free to grow and expand. What you think today may not be the measure for your thought tomorrow. You know, each Sunday we take time in the quiet. Someone reads the daily word, and then we have a meditation. And often in the meditation we'll say, we're going to go into the silence. Today we did for, 30 seconds, maybe a minute. But when you're at home in your own spiritual practice, prayer and meditation, you can take much longer than that. My instructors at the village would say 20 minutes minimum would be a very nice time in the silence. This is another quote from Charles from the book Teach Us to Pray. The purpose of the silence is to still the activity of the individual thought, so that the still small voice of God may be heard. For in the silence, Spirit speaks truth to us. Myrtle often wrote for children, like Wee Wisdom and things like that. But she also has this book, which is a compilation of some of the letters that she wrote to people who had contacted her for spiritual guidance or healing help. So it's called Healing Letters. And I'm going to read what she says about entering the silence. And it's very sweet. Be still, be still, be still. God in the midst of you is substance. God in the midst of you is love. God in the midst of you is wisdom. Let not your thoughts be given to lack, but let wisdom fill them with the substance and faith of God. Let not your heart be a center of resentment or fear and doubt. Be still and know. Be still and know that at this moment, your heart is an altar to God. God of love, and love so sure and unfailing, love so irresistible and magnetic that it draws your supply to you from the great storehouse of the universe. Trust God. Use God's wisdom. Prove and express God's love. And as you come out of the silence, count your blessings and give thanks for them. Isn't she wonderful? They both are. Oh, the mother and father of unity. Two people who lived according to their spiritual beliefs. There's so much to read and discover and uncover about their lives, and they can teach us even today. So they are the founders of Unity, which has become this worldwide positive path for spiritual living. Here are a few nuggets that I want to leave you with today from their teachings, and I'm going to say them in I statements so that you can resonate with the power of that. I'm comfortable with change, and I am comfortable with changing my mind. I can rewrite my beliefs about myself and about God. question what I read and what I hear and what I see around me, and take that into the silence. And there I will find my truth. Thank you, Chuck and Mert. Thank you.